Okay, so this is Lindsay Sinclair. I am the Director of Community Engagement with WBOM, and this is our April edition of Interview with an Expert. So let me introduce our expert. Leah Binkley is a certified business coach with a degree in psychology and over 20 years of business experience in a variety of industries, such as multiple business owner, marketing communications director, operations manager, process development, team leader, and mentor. She specializes in working with women entrepreneurs who are ready to take their startup or established business beyond its current stage and into an exciting new level of higher income. Her business breakthrough coaching programs were created to work with clients at the vision level and to get into the nitty-gritty to help with such things as design lucrative offers and programs, create and or make sales systems more profitable, let go of doubt, release perfectionism and overwhelm, press reset on money mindset, and feel aligned and confident about their brand and messaging to powerfully and authentically stand out from the crowd. Just imagine the results coaching with Leah Binkley could create for you and your business. In this segment of Ask an Expert series, if giving away your services, undercharging, or under-earning sounds familiar to you, then you're going to enjoy learning insights and tips with Leah today to help you begin charging what you're worth. So please help me welcome Leah.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be talking about this with you.
It's perfect. It's so interesting. We have so many offline conversations about these types of things. So it's nice to finally, I guess, formally sit down and I guess have a bit of a virtual audience that gets to share this with us. So thank you.
Well, for now, we'll see where it goes.
Perfect. So before we get started, can you explain what a coach does?
Yes, there are coaches in all different types of niches, but there's the fundamental element of what a coach does, which is essentially to get a person from where they are now to where they want to be. And what's the work that happens in between there? So what you can refer to as the knowing doing gap. We can know, just because you know how to do something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing it. So what we want to find out what the work is to be able to figure out how do we get somebody from point A to point B, where they are now, where they want to be. Why are they not doing what they're doing? So, excuse me. So once you figure that out, that's when all the exciting change starts to happen for whatever the results are that somebody wants to get. In how that happens, there's action steps that you need to take. And there's, depending on the type of niche or the coaching techniques, there's different formats and there's different styles and approaches to getting the results for that particular client towards their goal. And for me, there's that relationship part of it. So getting to know somebody and what it is that they want to do, what their goals are, what's important to them. I like to be able to work with somebody who likes to take responsibility for the results that they get, who is willing to be able to, or is open to the challenges that they're inevitably going to encounter. What's the work that has to be done in between there? And so that creates, that stems from building a trusted relationship, just like any business partnership. So it would be something like that. Is it a right fit for you?
Totally. And you would think just with the different types of backgrounds and personalities, scenarios, types of businesses, it wouldn't be a kind of one size fits all for something like that. So it's important to have that time one-on-one with your clients to know what they need.
I like to think, I'm sorry, Lindsay, I like to think I get along with most everybody, but I'm not for everybody.
It's all good. Okay, so what would be your style or format of coaching women in business?
Well, because I specialize in working with women in business who want to either create change in their business, whether it's create a new startup or take their existing business to the next level. What we do, or what I do, is I take those elements and I create action steps towards that. So through goal-oriented exercises, they're designed to take immediate action, take these practical steps that that, like I said, if somebody wants to be able to take their business to the next level, what are the practical steps that need to be done to do that, right? And that could be, do we need to address or reveal where there might be some areas to pay attention to for branding, or are they very crystal clear on who their niche is? What is their pricing structure? Are there systems that need to be updated, or would it be beneficial to update some systems? And we can just go from bottom to top. And sometimes there's only one area that needs to have attention paid to. So it really depends on where you're going to jump in. But either way, what happens is these exercises, excuse me, let me slow down my speech. As soon as you start applying these exercises to wherever it is that we want to pay attention to in your business, we start revealing new possibilities and opportunities for new income. And then it provides a lot of clarity and confidence in rolling out each action step toward the business goal. And when you set out in a new direction, what often happens is there's a landscape of riddled obstacles that might get in your way. And one of the biggest barriers that I tend to experience, and a lot of us have, regardless of whether I'm the coach or whether it's the client, we're all the same. We all have barriers that we come up with, and sometimes it's fear. When you really go dig into these exercises, we tend to uncover where those fear barriers are. And that's why these exercises are so great. They're practical towards whatever it is that you want to be able to do with your business. But on the journey, we uncover where maybe the limiting beliefs were, where the barriers were that have been holding your business back.
Interesting. I find it very tricky as a woman to kind of take a look at myself in the same way I would take a look at somebody else's situation. Right. Obviously, everybody is more critical or maybe doesn't see the true picture for themselves. So it's really nice to have kind of an outside perspective that can paint that picture for them. So that's great. Totally. So let's talk about women in business and where they want to be. So what do you find is the biggest struggle that women come up against in growing their business?
Well, to stay on topic, but I would actually probably pull this one out regardless of whatever topic we are on. But I would say the number one struggle that women deal with is their money mindset and what to charge. And how that shows up is they're often afraid they're charging too much, so they set their fees very low. They often are uncomfortable talking about money, so they hesitate to ask for the sale, or they apologize for their fees, or include too much in their packages. And the reason that this is a problem is because if their fees are too low, they'll end up having a difficult time making the money to sustain the business. And to make up for the low fees, they often end up working too many hours and getting burnt out. And the reason this is a problem because it undermines their credibility by charging so little. Yes, and even in Winnipeg, where we love a bargain, a good deal, price is an influencing factor on perceived quality. So much of our emotional well-being and security revolves around money. And so you can see how profoundly influential that is to your money mindset, how influential your money mindset is in your business. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, it's interesting. Like anytime I hear conversations happening about even the gender pay gap and how different it is for men and women, I personally know from experience that a lot of it comes down to women having issues talking about money, or maybe not being willing to negotiate for themselves because they just have a different perspective, or they don't want to come across as greedy. And for me, in my experience and being in recruitment now 10 years, that's where I see that the gap is that women are not asking for what they're worth in most situations. So that totally makes sense. Perfect. So everybody wants to fuel and support new business growth. I mean, business is ultimately about making money. So can you tell us about the money mindset shifts that you feel are critical for women to make?
Well, there are 4 particular ones that I like to pay attention to. And number 1 would be our identity. So I just want to define what these 4 are first. And so for our identity in the context of money, it's if somebody was to be making $50,000 a year or $50,000 a month, those two people and their sense of identity are very different in their thoughts or their feelings around money and their relationship about money. And so our beliefs, it's the beliefs on a deep subconscious level that controls the behavior in our relationship about money. And then we've got our self-talk, right? Those questions or statements that we tend to make to ourselves silently, that are either empowering us or disempowering us. We've all had that. And then our self-worth. So that's a direct measure of how we value ourselves in regard to what others might say or do, right? It's like our self-acceptance or our self-love. And so you can see that these four components are the primary cause of the results that you're getting. And so if you want to change your results around money, you need to change or shift your mindset and think in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So what are some strategies to start shifting those four money mindsets towards where we want it to be?
Okay, well, there's a lot of exciting things that I can share with you, but there's I got to rein myself in because there's so many I would love to tell. But first thing you want to do is you want to be able to create a new money story for yourself. And your money story is what you tell yourself every day about your experience with money or your relationship with money. And like you've shared some of those earlier, of your witnessing other people's behavior around money, or how they limit themselves, or how they self-talk, or those kinds of things. What we need to do is create a completely different story around that if your current story is not serving you, we need to start telling ourselves and framing ourselves in a different story in relationship with money, so that you can start immediately living from that and start telling that. And once you start doing that, your perspective changes and your decision making changes, and it's just going to influence your actions, and then it's just going to change everything. Excuse me. And then over time, as you keep rehearsing this mindset, this money story, it starts creating a very different experience for you. And then eventually those experiences become your new normal. Does that make sense? I hope. I get so excited about this subject, so I don't want to start overwhelming or go this geek rant, because I could just geek out completely. But what I want to do is I want to explain a little bit more about how our mindset is shaped. So this is part of that knowing doing thing that I was talking about in the beginning. So let's try and understand what's happening in the middle there. So what's happening that you know what you know how to do what you want to do, but why aren't you doing it? And so that's shaped, that's our mindset, and that is shaped by imprinting on our subconscious. And so describing what our subconscious may be, it's a person's choices or behaviors rests in the person's subconscious mind, and it's what we call the paradigm. And so a paradigm is a multitude of habits and behaviors that we've settled on, which we call our comfort zone. Okay, so how does our subconscious get imprinted? And so from day one, from the day that you were born, you're an impressionable being that's come into this world, and you're exposed to so many different influences. So you don't have any choices at that point. It's not developed yet. So what's happening is your environment around you, the people around you, they're all influencing about how your subconscious is going to relate to the external world. And so think about your culture or your religion. Did you live in a household of affluence or scarcity? Your parents' preferences, what were their habits? What were their biases? What was their outlook? Did they tell you to be very careful, or did they worry about you? Or did they do the opposite? Did they tell you to go for it and jump off that cliff because there's more adventure around the corner? It all depends. I mean, your imprint of your subconscious only needs to change if it's not serving you. But that's how it comes about, right? So well, how that happens, it's not just one thought, one exposure. It's repeated exposure that's imprinting on you every day. It's like it creates a groove almost in your brain so that there's a neural pathway that your comfort zone takes you on that journey all the time, and that becomes your norm. And that, so if that has become a norm that isn't serving you, you know that you didn't make those choices. At least you're finding out now if you're hearing about it for the first time. Your parents, your environment influenced that paradigm that you're living from. So, and it was developed because you didn't have a conscious thought around that. So basically that's your programming. And if you decide now that you want to be able to have different programming, you have a conscious thought and conscious awareness that you can now change your mindset, change your paradigm, and start making decisions from there. And so this is where your money mind story comes in, is you're now changing your paradigm. You're changing your perspective, your perspective of how you look at the world and how you start making your decisions, your outlook on possibilities. There's so much that you can do. And so once you start changing your paradigm, then your behaviors change and your results change. So does that speak to you?
No, it totally makes sense. I mean, the path of least resistance is not always the best path to be going down.
Right.
I've learned that usually the best things don't happen in your comfort zone. So when you start to step outside of that, that's where the beauty and the growth happens. So I definitely can see it for sure. Totally.
So it's like law of attraction, but to me, it's law of attraction, but there's a lot of science behind it too. But law of attraction has the mystical value to it, but it's essentially the same thing. What you think about, you bring about, right? The neuroscience behind that, that's how my brain works. I need to know the hows and the whys. I need strategy. I want exercises. I want to understand all of that kind of stuff. So that's where I appreciate the law of attraction, and I appreciate the mystical, because it's all true. There's all value in it. But I love to be able to understand things about applied science behind it and the reasons behind things as well. But I want to actually put you through an exercise before, just to help you understand, or at least feel what I'm talking about the money mind story, or just even just challenging your comfort zone, or how you start making change and the repetition. So are you left-handed or are you right-handed?
Right-handed.
You're right-handed. Okay. So what if I asked you to use your left hand from now on? What would that feel like?
It's funny because we joked my sister was adopted because she's left-handed. So I guess that would bring up a little family conversation. But yeah, it would be uncomfortable to say the least, and probably would want to revert back to using my dominant hand, which is my right hand.
Right. But I would imagine that there's certain scenarios that it would probably be easier than others, right?
For sure.
Yeah. So I'm hearing, at least I think I'm hearing you say that you probably would revert back to your right hand more often than not, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what if learning to become a person who's dominant left hand was the only thing in the way of you making $1 million? Would that change things?
I think it would.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a something I'm pulling out of the air, and I'm just kind of staying on theme here. But that's where you start. Now you start going, okay, now there's a goal here. So if you just randomly said, okay, I'm just going to make this goal because tomorrow I want to do something, and tomorrow it will serve me. But what if you want something that, like long-term goals and long-term change, because what is happening right now isn't serving you. So now from this point, you've identified with me, $1 million is pretty motivating, if that's what the case is. But now you have to start emotionally connecting with it. These are all the steps towards change. So when you start envisioning, like, can you start envisioning perhaps and get emotionally invested? What would that look like in your life? You know, what would that feel like? How would that change your world? right? So imagine that that was motivating enough. How many times do you think you would need to repeat using your left hand before suddenly you are a person who uses their left hand more dominantly?
Well, I would imagine lots and lots of hours of doing things. It would
Yeah.
take at least to be able to sign my name or write with any clarity so people could read it.
Yeah. So you can imagine that you're going to come up against a lot of things that are telling you to go back to your comfort zone. And so when you start digging into um, what would keep, or why are you not sticking with change? What is it that keeps pulling you back in your comfort zone? Because I'll tell you, our paradigm typically doesn't want to be changed. You know, your habits are lurking and they're chirping and they're telling you, you know, just go back to the comfort zone. It's so much easier. But change doesn't happen from there, like you pointed out. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to do repetition over and over again. But the key here is, in order for somebody to be able to stick with their goals, they have to be emotionally connected to it. They have to be really clear on why they want to be able to go for it, really clear on what's the end result. So I just wanted to give you some sort of idea about what did that feel like? So you know that there's a comfort zone to come up against. And why is that comfort zone established where it is, why it is? And so by using some of the practices that I do in the context of business and taking your business through practical change, that's when we start recognizing what is the gap? Why is there barrier? Why are we not getting to the level that we want to do it? And a lot of the times it's us getting in the way. So, and then also when there's teammates, say you have people who are working with you, you've hired people to do various tasks and they're underperforming. It's not that they don't know how, it's what is their paradigm, you know? So it's these kinds of things that we spend so much money on training people how to do something. We got to start actually starting to recognize that when they are underperforming, let's dig a little bit deeper. Why are they not doing what they're doing? What they know how to do, that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting. I've read a few books lately, and it really focuses on the structures, and that a lot of people just kind of have a goal in mind, but maybe don't put the structures or systems in place to ensure that they're successful. And like you said, building habits, making any sort of significant change in your life, it's not about waking up one morning and deciding I'm doing this and this is my new mindset. It's slowly changing old habits, and that takes a little bit every day. Whether it's 1% better every day is a better way to look at it than trying to change everything in a very short period of time.
Yeah, exactly. So let me give you some action steps now, some strategies. So we talked about the money mind story. So in developing it and the importance behind developing it. So how do you start developing it? So one of the strategies that we do is you start thinking about who do you want to be. So I'm not going to ask you to reveal anything, but just start thinking along that line in our conversation here is like, who do you want to be? And what's that image of yourself that you want to have a hold of yourself? So I often ask people to go to, let's go 3 years in advance ahead from now. Where do you hope that your results will take you? Or like the action steps that you're doing, all the hard work that you're doing. Where is it that you want that person to be 3 years down that road? What do they look like? Not necessarily look like, but who are they? How would they think? How would that person make decisions? What kind of actions would they take?
Yeah.
You know, what if you get emotionally connected to that person that you just fleshed out in your mind, like take some time. You have to think about it. There's exercises around this, but on a very top tier level of talking about this, when you think about yourself 3 years down the road, where do you want to be and what does your environment look like? What are you doing? Where do you live? All those
Yeah.
kinds of things. What is your
I mean, I have
business
to
look
say
like?
this only because of the situation we're in, but I hope I'm vaccinated and there's no COVID in the world. I have to say that if we're looking 3 years ahead, because I'm really hopeful that things will be normal by then. But yes, yes. Sorry, I just had to add that.
You and everyone else. God, yeah, fingers crossed, please. Um, Then, okay, so now you've got a cleared out picture, a really clear picture of who you want to be, where you want to be, what does it feel like all of the senses you can think of. If you think about that, really get a clear image of that person. And then start thinking about how that person would make their decisions. How would they think? How would they feel? And then identify with that. So that's part of fleshing out your money story. Another one is let's do, is this the practical one? Yes. It's kind of a practical step here. So what is the income that you want to make per year or per month? I mean, this is when you start creating your identity around money. So when you start thinking about what kind of income you want, I often say, what are you making now? And double it. What does that feel like? Does that feel uncomfortable? Does that feel authentic? There's so many different things that come up with that I often have to help coach people through. And, it's something that I had to learn how to do myself. So it's made a huge difference in my life and in my income too. So when you start stretching outside of your comfort zone with this, then you start thinking about new possibilities and you can start living from that. So now that you've got a number in your mind, now let's give that money some purpose. So you're going to list out what you're going to do with that money. And what you'll do is show what this action does, what this exercise does, it kind of shows where you're holding back. It may show you where you've been worried about what other people think about you around something like this. Are you feeling judged around it? It reveals a whole bunch of things. And this is an area that I love working through women through. It's an exercise I love to work through with my clients. I love to see the revelations. It's like, wow, because I had no idea I was so in my way.
Yeah.
And this all works with, if you want to go for a raise too, really understanding what's your dollar? I mean, what is it that you want? So when you start giving it a purpose, this is when you're going to start listing out where are you allocating those funds every month. So you can have a better understanding of where does that money go? What is its purpose? What does it do for you? And oftentimes you're going to start figuring out that you haven't been charging enough. There's not enough to go around, right?
Yeah.
So let me give you an example of where you might allocate that money. So how much or what percentage for your basic expenses? And so how much for investing in training and mentoring? And how much you want to go towards debt payoff if that's something that's important to you? Or how much you want to allocate towards just a cash cushion. I mean, not just, sorry, that is something that is important still. And how much do you want to just keep in your bank account because it feels incredibly wonderful and secure to have cash in your bank account. So you might have like 3 or 4 or 5 buckets that you can allocate your cash to every month. But I just want to be clear that this is not budgeting. This is about really being clear about giving your money a purpose and unapologetically going after it. That's really the thing here, is stop apologizing.
Yeah.
You deserve for the hard work that you do, you deserve to be paid what you're worth, right? Okay. And this is where I also want to tell you that, and I think it's important that we decide that we're worthy. You decide you're worthy of what it is that you want. And what we often do is we start saying, well, once I start doing this, then I'll do that. Yeah. Once I start making this kind of money, then I'll be worthy. No, you are right now. So decide on what you want to make. Decide that you're worthy. And that's probably the most important thing I could tell you.
Yeah.
So I just want everyone to understand that if you decide you want to change your results, you can. Anything is possible.
Yeah.
And I love helping people through this. And, if I can help you or anyone else, I would love to. It would be my privilege to be able to help.
Well, my favorite saying is, without change, there is no change. So it's one
That's
of
right.
those things where you have to work towards what you want, and sometimes it's uncomfortable and puts you in a different position. But if you want something different, then you have to do something different. So
Yeah,
that makes sense.
totally.
So can you tell us about where people can find you, Leah?
Yes, I can. So if you want to reach out for any questions, want to learn more about how we can work together, or just in questions in general, I'm happy to help. But you can reach me at leahbinkley.com.
Perfect. Well, we will tag that in the posting so that people have access to that information if they have any questions. Of course, you can reach out to WBOM because I happen to have an inside line to get to Leah if I need to. So we'll definitely connect you if anybody has any follow-up questions or needs contact details. So thank you for taking the time to chat with us. I can't wait till I get to see you in person again. It just
I know.
seems strange doing everything through Zoom screen, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. Well, hopefully for not much longer. We got to get out there and start socializing, but also we have to do our part in making sure it goes away. So
Totally.
take care of yourself.
For sure. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.